that وَوَهَبْنَا لِدَاوُودَ سُلَيْمَانَ نِعْمَ الْعَبْدُ إِنَّهُ أَوَّابٌ إِذْ عُرِضَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْعَشِيِّ الصَّافِنَاتُ الْجِيَادُ. Like, he was a king, like his father David, and he used to return to us in repentance very often, more often than usual. And then at the time, he loved possessions in this world, and he was very rich. So he had flocks and flocks of horses, and he loved to see them every day, to check on them, many thousands of them. One day he was really taken by the beauty of the horses that he forgot the prayer. And he said then he regretted that even though I am fascinated by this wealth, I forgot to mention my God, or to mention God, or to pray to God, and he felt bad. So this is hubb al-khayr. That means the love of this dunya made him forget about the love of God, for the love of God. So, how many of us that many times we forget to love God because we are busy making money, right? Or enjoying what we have. Oh, we only live once. Enjoy it. So, we only live once, as if like we know exactly when we're gonna die, so we can, do it before we leave this earth. So the love of God and the love of possessions and this dunya has to be hand in hand to guide you not to go astray and do other stuff that God doesn't like, regardless. So can you recite the English? I gave you enough time to...
Yes, I found it.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay.
He said...
32.
Yeah. He said, I have preferred the love of niceties to the remembrance of my Lord until it disappeared behind the veil.
Yes. So that means he's regretting, right? So how often do we regret being busy doing something else than reciting the word of God or being in love of God, right? This is our trial in this dunya, in this life, to balance the issue. It's so hard to balance. Even prophets couldn't do it. So how about us normal people? I mean normal, doesn't mean like they are abnormal, but we're kind of like, Joe Blow. Not a prophet. Okay, Surah number 76, Ayah number 8. عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. Okay, did you get it?
Yes.
Okay.
We only feed you for the sake of God. We want from you neither compensation. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
You go.
Compensation nor gratitude. And 8 is, and they feed for the love of Him, the poor and the orphan and the captive.
Okay, so the quality or the character of those people who are pious and righteous, that they give and they don't ask for reward in return, right? So now we say, okay, regardless of what you believe in or who you are, when you give, not expecting a compensation for what you have given, your relationship is with God Almighty. Oh, I have the sophisticated one. Oh, yeah, fancy shoes. Nice, okay. So this is what the translation of it, that they feed out of the love of God, not expecting compensation or recognition in this life. We only need to be rewarded by God. We don't ask for more. And this is the character and the quality of the believers and the righteous. I think my time is up. Brother Salam. Am I okay, or should I continue?
You're always okay.
Thank you so much for your trust in me. And Hassan says I'm done. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you being here, and our guests. Thank you for coming, and may God bless you. I will see you next Sunday, if you would. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to start with a little introduction. It'll be done by our chairperson, Ms. Hidab Tarifi. Please welcome her, and then we will carry on to our program. Ms. Hidab Tarifi.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm excited you're here. Are you?
Yes.
Good. Well, I want to welcome you to the Islamic Center of Southern California. I'm really honored and so happy that we are able to have this event today. I want to share with you a little bit about my experience with none but the Reverend Ed Bacon and All Saints. First of all, I want to welcome you all from our beloved sister organization, the All Saints Church. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support all these years. But I really want to talk a little bit about Reverend Ed Bacon, because I was new to the community when I first got introduced to Ed, and I was just amazed by his personality and how he treats every single person. But I was even more amazed about his leadership, on how he leads his community to believe in his message and believe in taking positions and stands that might not mean a lot to the community he's from, but it certainly means a lot to the community that I come from. His support and his solidarity throughout the years has been not only appreciated, but they have been certainly inspirational. It has been inspirational to me in taking a stand as a human being, not only to support my fellow Muslims, but my fellow Christians, my fellow Jews, my fellow Hindus, my fellow Sikhs, my fellow human beings. And I certainly learned from him, from every word he said, but every position that he took. I remember vividly after 9/11, when Muslims were scared, some Muslim women were even scared to leave their homes or show their identity as Muslims. He took a position of solidarity to start fasting with us. And I remember us breaking fast at All Saints, praying at All Saints. To me, that was an amazing thing that we were able to do, but we would have not been able to do it without the vision and the leadership of Ed Bacon. And with that, of course, how strong the community in All Saints and how much they believe in that mission and that vision of us all being one human family, praying to the one God and being accountable to God. So I want to thank you again. I want to thank Ed for giving us of his time, especially today. I am so eager to listen to his message that he's going to share with us today. I know he's retiring. I still don't see where he is, but I know he's retiring. But I want to just give him a message that you retire from your role, you don't retire from your family. Your family are still here, and this center is your home, and we look to see you coming back and sharing from your wisdom and your experience. Is Ed here?
No.
Okay, so when is he gonna join us? Okay. No, I will bring Salam. But before I bring Salam, I just want to acknowledge some of our leadership here in the audience. First, thank you for the members of the All Saints who are here. I want to thank our youth who are joining us today. Thank you for coming down and opening your hearts and minds to listen to the wisdom that we're going to all receive from Ed. I know the New Horizons are presented. I know the chairwoman of the Muslim Public Affairs Council is here. And some of our leadership, I know Dr. Raja Hadhoud is here as well. So I personally feel Dr. Meher is here with us as well. So with that, I welcome Salam Al-Mariati to share with us a few remarks. Thank you all for being here.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Before we start, I'm going to ask you something. What do you, tomorrow's tax day, so what do you get? It has nothing to do with today's talk, by the way. What do you get when you combine the with IRS? Theirs. Like I said, it has nothing to do with today. It's the best applause I've had in the center for a long time. Ed's no stranger to this center, and neither are you. And I think this is one of the special relationships that have been built between Christians and Muslims anywhere in the world. And seriously, when we talk about the IRS actually conducted an investigation of All Saints Church some years ago because they spoke out against the war in Iraq. And it just happened to be during the presidential season. And and I don't want to say we, because I feel like we're part of the All Saints Church community. We took on, that's the second best applause I've received. So we took on that challenge, and I have to say that George Regas, who is the former rector of All Saints Church, Ed Bacon, all the leaders, really stood up for principle and did it with class. There was no shouting, there was no protest. It was simply a stand for what was right and getting the right people to do the job and not wavering. So that to me shows character of this great institution. The second thing that happened is we were the first national Muslim organization to have a conference, a convention at a church. And at that time, it was also done at All Saints Church 3 years ago. And there were some Christian organizations and other groups that said, why is this church opening its doors to terrorists? And again, Ed Bacon and All Saints Church stood by us, and they did not waver. I can't say that for everybody that we've met. We have friends, but let's face it, these are difficult times, and it's easy to just duck the issue. It's easy to just completely abdicate our responsibility and cave into political pressure. And it's amazing, we talk about all the great prophets in the Bible and the Quran, how they stood up to pressure. And I think All Saints Church represents that. The last thing I want to mention about Ed Bacon and All Saints Church is that they were one of the few religious institutions that accepted Syrian refugees. And I wanted Saleh Khulaki, who's part of the Islamic Center of Southern California, but also with the Syrian American Council, to say a few words about that. Saleh.
Thank you, Salam. Thank you for being here again. My name is Saleh Khulaki. on the board of Syrian American Council. And of course, our brother Ed Bacon is the brother from another mother, so to speak, that I felt really so connected with him when I knew him, when I got to know him. And to my surprise, when he used to come in our holiday celebration and to declare that he fasted 30 days the whole Ramadan just in support of the Muslim cause, that made me feel twice of a case of acute passionitis, so to speak, in the medical term, and the enlarged loving heart, that he encompasses all people regardless of faith, creed, color. And that's his personality. He's passionate about being a loving person. And with that said, obviously, with his leadership and also the leadership of the board of the All Saints Church in Pasadena, that they worked very hard in these circumstances to bring Syrian refugees to the San Gabriel Valley. And he worked so hard, and we all know the attitude of our GOP, where they said that, don't bring Muslims into our countries, or kill all the Muslims, or whatever, what have you. He stood against all that rhetoric, and he proved again that his love and passion encompasses all and surpasses the hate and the rhetorics of hate from others. So we thank him on behalf of the Islamic Center. We thank him to have adopted that, and we thank the leadership of All Saints Church with, in my opinion, even when he retires, All Saints Church does not retire with him. So we keep our connection with the communities, and we always love to be there, part of their community and their family. And we love for them to consider us as family as well. So we thank him, and in his leadership and can-do spirit of bringing needy people from Syria, even though it's a small percentage, but that says a lot about him and the love that his heart contains, encompasses. All Saints Church also was the first to step up and work with the organization called IRIS, not IRS. IRIS, IRIS stands for Interfaith Refugee and Immigration Services, or Service. So he brought Syrian refugee family and to live in this country, to San Gabriel Valley, and to establish their new lives and their new home. And we also work together with them, SAMS, which is the Syrian American Medical Association, and the SAC, which is Syrian American Council, to bring more refugees. And we ask God to protect our community and our country from all sorts of hate and terrorism. May Allah bless you, may God bless you, and thank you for being here, part of our community. Should I go more? We're trying to stop. Anyways, a lot of people will share their love to Ed Bacon, and it's part of our not payback or giving back to the bigger family in Pasadena who adopted us. It's Islamic Center of Southern California. So thank you very much for being here. It's a mark of a loving community and accepting community. And we hope that all Christians and Jews, brothers and sisters in this country, feel the same way towards the Muslims. Because we feel the same way towards you too. We love you. Thank you so much.
Okay, we are still awaiting that. He actually finished a sermon. I think people from All Saints Church probably know more than I do. Probably close to noon, so that's why we're doing some comments. I hope it's not beginning to sound like a eulogy. You know, praising Ed and how great he is, and pancreatitis and something enlarged, and I don't know where I thought I was going with that. So we're basically explaining why we're having this event. Also, you know, I invited the youth group to be with us, and my son said, we're tired of hearing all this political, you know, stuff about Islamophobia and stuff like that. And I agree. I agree. Now he's blaming somebody else, just like his father, off the old block. And I actually agree. I don't want this to be another talk about Islamophobia, and I don't think Ed plans to make this about Islamophobia. I think what we're talking about is, in the Japanese-American experience, there are 3 lessons. Number 1, there was prejudice. Number 2, actually number 1, there was a catastrophic event. Number 2, there was prejudice. And number 3, they were not engaged with the rest of the society. They were an isolated community. And so the lesson from that, if we want to prevent anything like that from happening to any community, then we have to engage each other. And so this is more of a lesson in how a Christian leader has engaged the Muslim community and how he's learned from Muslims and how we've learned from a Christian leader as well in dealing with the dangers that are facing us as a society. Number 2, the idea of pluralism and especially religious coexistence is becoming more of a abstract philosophical issue, or at best we come together and sing, or we break bread, and it's sort of that kumbaya moment. But in reality, this Christian-Muslim relationship, this Abrahamic relationship, we feel is important to preserve America's values of pluralism and to demonstrate that America can be part of the solution in peacemaking abroad, as well as peacemaking at home. So Christian-Muslim reconciliation, Christian-Muslim understanding, Christian-Muslim unity is very critical now for our country's interests and the future of our country. It is not just done to counter Islamophobia or to expose the racism and bigotry in the society or to pat Muslims on the back and say, you know, you're good people, you're not as bad as what they say, you know, about you in the media. That Christian-Muslim relationship here, like I said, it can happen, it is happening, and it is important to happen here in the United States, starting from Los Angeles. And for that reason, we salute Ed Bacon, All Saints Church, the Episcopalian community, and our Christian allies. That's why it's important to be here. The other issue I wanted to mention is, you know, there's a movement in terms of dealing with the Palestinian issue. I see Randy is here. Yvette Bierce, who is a scholar from UCLA, has worked on the Syrian and Middle East issues here. I want to acknowledge them. Thank you for joining us for today's session. The Middle East is undergoing, obviously, dramatic deterioration, if not complete disintegration. And as a result, we are going to be facing more challenges. And the more we can get allies to have forums of understanding on the Middle East, not for the sake of supporting one side or the other, but to appreciate the complexity of the situation and to stand for principle. For example, Randy is here, and he has led the movement within the Episcopalian community for divestment in countering the building of Israeli settlements on Palestinian lands. And this is a challenging moment for major Christian organizations, not just the Episcopalian Church, but I believe the Presbyterian and Lutheran, Methodist, all the good Christians, and the Catholics, and so we are undergoing a change within America about dealing with this issue. And again, I don't talk about the Palestinian issue as a Palestinian issue per se, but how it's important as Americans. And we as Americans are financing the oppression against Palestinians. We are culpable in what's happening in the Middle East today with the military adventures, with the militarization of the region, and with the policies of the region that deny the human rights of so many people. So when we have Christian organizations standing up saying, we will demonstrate against this policy through our investment portfolios by removing any kind of retirement funds or not supporting any businesses that will benefit Israeli settlement policies in the Palestinian territories. I think that again shows solidarity not only between Muslims and Christians, but people with among all people of conscience. And again, with that, I salute the All Saints Episcopal Church and Randy for doing that work. The last thing I want to mention, and I hope Ed shows up within the next minute or two, and I do expect that he does walk in within that time period. The last issue I want to talk about is this idea of what's happening in the elections. And we are witnessing two very important developments in the elections. On the one hand, you have a base of people that feel that pluralism is a threat to their own identity and their future. So 25%, for example, of America, that represents 75 million people, believe that we should not allow for immigrants to come to America. We should have more profiling of Muslims. We should patrol, quote unquote, Muslim neighborhoods, even though there's no such thing as a Muslim neighborhood. That's a reality. We cannot deny that this is a phenomenon within America. It is actually more than just a minority group now. It is a significant segment of American population. And while on the one hand we can say that that's because of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hysteria, it is also because we have not engaged that community. We have not made ourselves known. Most people have misapprehensions about Muslims because they don't know a Muslim. And that means that we need to do a better job of conveying our message. On the other hand, the other development within the presidential elections is that it has galvanized a social justice movement. There is actually a political revolution, if not transformation, happening before our very eyes. There are more people voting within immigrant populations in America than ever before. There are more young people going out and working precincts than ever before. And on top of that, you have Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton courting the Muslim vote. It's never happened before. There's never been an overt attempt to court the Muslim vote. That means something. That's an opportunity for us. And while we cannot endorse candidates, because we're a 501c3, this is a house of worship, this is not an endorsement, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to engage people who are in this room, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Hindu, who are ready for a change in American politics, working for social justice. That's why we've got to be organized for this upcoming elections. And we're going to hear more about this as we get closer to the elections in June. And for the first time, talk about another major change, the California primary is actually going to mean something. Before, it was all decided by February, March. Now, June 7th, I think that's the date, is going to be critical in terms of the next presidential nominee for both parties. So I really hope that you get more information from us to see how you can get involved in the upcoming elections. And people are also campaigning for statewide office. There's going to be a big campaign for who's going to replace Dianne Feinstein. She's leaving her seat. What's that?
Barbara Boxer.
Like I said, Barbara Boxer is leaving her seat. And so there are people who are now campaigning it's an open seat. It's in a very exciting time in California politics. So I hope you all will be involved in that. I guess I have time for an announcement. And I hope people are just taking a break. Come right back. I'm sure Ed will be here any minute. Krista, could you pass out the flyer, the announcements for our Impact Media Awards? Our Media Awards is coming up next week, and all of you are going to be my guests. If you'd like to come, just tell me, and I will make you my guest. That's a promise. We're honoring 4 important luminaries in Hollywood. George Takei played Mr. Sulu in Star Trek. He actually was a victim of Japanese-American internment in 1941, 1942. He lived in Santa Anita Racetrack as part of the relocation process. And he has spoken out against internment and against the hysteria against Muslims in this year. So he will receive our Voice of Courage and Conscience Award. The second honoree is Charmaine Chenoid. Charmaine Obey Chenoid, thank you. I'm glad I have my corrections out there today. And she made 2 films that have won Academy Awards. One was about repairing faces of women who were attacked by extremists that threw acid at their face because they were part of a religious police in Pakistan. So she had documented how a doctor would go and repair their faces. And the second documentary was on honor killing, and she used that film to begin a debate on the need to change the laws to make it a punishment for those involved in honor killing in her country of Pakistan. So we're honoring her as our second honoree. The third honoree is Hassan Minhaj. He's on The Daily Show, and he's a Muslim comedian, and he's done a lot in terms of making Muslims known through comedy and fighting back against bigotry through comedy. How many have seen Hassan Minhaj? Okay, good. So about a quarter of you. All right. He's very, very funny. And then the third is a documentary on Syrian refugees called Salam Neighbor. And we believe at Impact that we have to engage Hollywood to create change in public understanding of Muslims and Islam. And we have to engage decision makers in creating change on the policies that impact our community. We can't just be complaining about that in a bubble or within our own circles. We have to speak to others about that. So, how many people want to come next Sunday, April 24th? Right? Are you planning for me or for Ed? Good. But before I bring Ed up, I need to do the business, finish business here. How many people want to come? Raise your hands. Keep your hands raised. Okay. I'm going to pass a clipboard, and each person that wants to come as my guest, put your name down on that clipboard. You will be my guest. Make sure you have your phone number, your social security number, your credit card number, your all that information. No, just your phone, your email and phone number, your name, email, phone number, and you will be my guest. So, now we've arrived to the minute we've all been waiting for. I want to acknowledge one of the most important people in the audience today, and it's not Ed Bacon, it's Hope Bacon. Hope, stand up. I know how important people like you are. I have a wife too, just like you, lovely, supportive, bright. We both married up, Ed.
Yes, we did.
And I appreciate everything you've done, and I hope that you and Ed and Layla and I can continue our relationship no matter where you go. And I'm really honored by having you here, and all the friends of All Saints are here. I attended two very important forums at All Saints in the last couple of months. One was a reading of the sermons of Rabbi Leonard Pearman, and it was a memorial for him. It was actually his birthday. He would have been 93? 95 this year. And we had a wonderful reading and reflections, and Ed, as always, was brilliant. And it just shows how All Saints Church is bringing community together. And we talked about how All Saints Church has stood for principle and is unwavering, and that is because of the leadership and the vision of peacemaking and reconciliation of people like the Reverend Ed Bacon. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ed Bacon.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, I want you to know how important it is to me for you to have invited me to be here and to be patient until I got here. I had to preach at All Saints. I only have 2 more Sundays after today, and I had to preach there, and my greatest nightmare was that we would drive up and all of you would be leaving because you'd given up on me. So thank you very much for staying. This room is one of my homes in Los Angeles. I've prayed here. I've spoken here. I've met and eaten in the rooms in this building. I've organized for action for justice and peace upstairs. I have wept. I have laughed here. I've learned here. This is a place of friendship and community and continuing education for me. Most of all, I have grown closer to Allah here. And I have developed lifelong friendships here. I've been touched by greatness here, under the tutelage of my mentors, Dr. Hassan Hatut, Dr. Maher Hatut, Dr. Nazir Kaja, and my brother, Salam al-Marayati. I'm so glad to be here with the other Dr. Hatut today. And the Interfaith Study Group, representative by Jews and Muslims and members of All Saints Church and other Christians. I'm retiring from my position as rector of All Saints Church in 2 weeks' time. May 1 will be my last sermon. We will worship that day in the street to accommodate, hopefully, all the friends who will join us. And the service will open with the Muslim call to prayer. That is how important Islam has come to be for me. I am a Muslim. And I invite each of you to come worship with us and give thanks with us on Sunday, May 1 at 10 a.m. in Pasadena. I've been asked to address the topic of interfaith peacemaking in a time of hate. I'm honored to do so, for it allows me to address 3 passions of mine: the fear-based nature of hatred, the reality that in order to be authentic religious, one discovers that one is interreligious, as I am, and a source of peace, which is a life based in love. First, hatred is fear-based. Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote a famous Broadway musical about racism and hatred called South Pacific. And one of the songs is, "You have to be carefully taught." You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid. of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade, you've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. The truth of the matter is, my friends, that every one of us, every person in this room, comes into the world inheriting a story or a narrative from our parents or our religion or our culture, and too frequently that story is about hatred. Some religions are fear-based. Some fundamentalists in my own religion purport that Christianity is a fear-based religion, and thus they hate people who are not Christian, think they're superior to people who are not Christian. They teach that Allah and God are not the same God. That is why we have a time of hatred. We also have a time of hatred because there are industries that are making billions of dollars every year, making us very afraid. The more afraid we are, the more money they make. They want us to hate one another, to go to war against one another. And in war, there never is a victor. The only victor in a war are the arms manufacturers. My brothers and sisters, we must be aware of that, stand together against that, and every time that one of our leaders tries to seduce us into war, we have to remember that. Thank you very much. Now, we also have some neuroscience working against us. I just preached at All Saints about a psychologist named Rick Hansen, who has shown that the mind is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive experiences. I know you've heard about people who can receive 10 compliments in one day and 1 criticism. But what keeps them up all night? It's the 1 criticism. You and I have brains that need to evolve beyond that neuroscientific reality so that we can focus on the positive and what we share in common, rather than the negative which divides us. Some of you know that after 9/11, I began fasting during Ramadan, some of the most important spiritual disciplines of my life. I remember my first Eid. We were all together in that wonderful convention center. People from all over the world in their ethnic dress. I was so moved. Dr. Hassan Hathout was preaching that day. And toward the end of his sermon, he said, now I have an address I want to direct to the young people in this room. He said, you young Muslims are being given a choice between 2 religions within Islam. A religion of hatred and division, or the true Islam, a religion of peace and justice and community. It is up to you to choose. Dr. Hathout could have been speaking about my own religion. For so many, many years, my own religion, Christianity, has been a religion of hatred, of division. And there's a moral choice that every Christian must make and every Muslim must make to understand whether or not we will embrace our religions, to to be religions of peace. My thinking is that the answer to a hate-filled world is to be interreligious. After 9/11, those of us in the Los Angeles Interfaith community gathered together at the mosque near USC. An imam said something that has stayed with me and has been my mantra ever since. He said, to be religious in the 21st century is to be interreligious. Immediately we began to change things at my church, All Saints Church. We began to pray for Hagar, not just Sarah. Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael. We began to look at Jesus to see how interreligious Jesus was, how interreligious the Bible is. And as a result, we have been attracting people who live interreligious lives, who live lives that are hyphenated. Most people in Los Angeles have a hyphen in their religious identity because of who we love, to whom we're married, with whom we work, with whom we're good friends. I am a Bapto-Episcopalian, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist. As a result, we have a family named Amelia and Jeff who came to All Saints a year ago. Amelia is a Latina wife, raised Roman Catholic, married to a Jewish husband, Jeff. They have a daughter who is married to a Muslim man, and their son, who is gay, and his husband will soon have a baby. They are the centerfold of the magazine of All Saints Church. The daughter who's married to the Muslim man recently gave birth to their second and third grandchildren. Twins born dangerously premature. 7 weeks premature, in fact. Amelia told me in December, when they wheeled my daughter in for a C-section, my daughter's blood pressure was through the roof as a consequence of eclampsia. The smaller twins' heartbeats were decelerating. I tried my best to stay positive and upbeat. The look on my daughter's face was something I'll never forget. She looked so frightened and so vulnerable. After she left, I was alone in the hospital waiting room with my daughter's mother-in-law, the Muslim mother of my son-in-law. Sarah's husband, Tony, was born in Tehran to a Muslim mother. Her name is Heli. Heli, my daughter's Muslim mother-in-law, held me in a tight bear hug and asked me to pray with her. She said, Amelia, you pray in your way, and I'll pray in my way. You pray using the name God. I will pray using the name Allah. And as I held on to her, I let her know I believed our prayers were going to the same place. She said she agreed. Amelia wrote, how interesting that this dyed-in-the-wool Catholic, married to a nice Jewish boy, should receive solace from a Muslim woman. The latest report, my friends, is that both twins are at home with their parents, doing beautifully, surrounded by the interfaith grandparents. After the mass shootings in San Bernardino, I learned via email 3 days later that one of the 14 victims of that shooting was the son of a cousin of mine with whom I'd gone to high school. His name was Shannon Johnson. During the shooting, he shielded a colleague as they all dove for cover under a dining table. He held his colleague and said, "I've got you." Those were the last words Shannon spoke before he was killed. His mother called me, a cousin with whom I graduated from high school, and asked me to go home to our hometown in South Georgia to preach Shannon's funeral. In my conversations to learn about Shannon, I learned that when he was 8, his 29-year-old father had tried to save one of his colleagues from dying and himself died in the process. A multi-generational pattern about friendship being about giving your life for another person. I also learned that Shannon had in the last few months of his life begun a process of healing and reconciling with all the broken relationships stemming from his childhood trauma. And he had done that while developing a meditation practice based in reading a Hindu text. A hyphenated, interreligious life. A South Georgia Baptist influenced by Hinduism. Finally, another story. Just one day before the Paris terrorist attack in November, we at All Saints received into our welcome a Syrian refugee family of Sunni Muslims. We had been asked 3 weeks earlier to make a quick decision to be the welcoming church for this family. We were given 3 days to make the decision because Mother was 30 weeks pregnant and we had to get her situated here in Los Angeles County with an OBGYN in time for her to give birth. The day after they arrived was the bombing at the Bataclan Club. And then our political scene in this country erupted with the worst and most nauseating forms of bile, of anti-refugee hate and fear-mongering. Somebody forgot that Jesus' family themselves were refugees. Those parents now have given birth to a third child. They have visited All Saints Church. They are all doing well. We purchased a car for the father, helped him get a job. And they are becoming, like so many members of this wonderful Islamic Center, Muslim Americans. Finally, let me wrap this up. We need a new narrative of love in this country. And those of you who are in this room, along with me and my church, we are responsible for developing this new narrative of love. We cannot externalize this problem. We must internalize it and see that it is our responsibility to step up and to be interfaith embodiments of peace. And the only way you can be an interfaith embodiment of peace is for you to be an interfaith embodiment of love. Peace never comes from fear. Peace can only come from love. Justice cannot come from fear. Justice can only come from love. In May of 2002, I joined 20 interfaith peacemakers from all over the world on a pilgrimage to Syria to strengthen Christian-Muslim relations. When my fellow pilgrims and I joined the Grand Mufti of Syria for Friday prayers in his mosque in Damascus, I was struck by his spirit and by his words. In the Grand Mufti's address to the 4,000 people gathered, he went to great lengths to hold up the message of universal brotherhood and sisterhood in Islam, a message of peace and justice and compassion for all members of the human family. His warm and embracing spirit reminded me of the spirit of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the Nobel Peace Laureate from South Africa. It was as if those two spiritual leaders had made a fundamental life choice to focus their preaching and teaching and living and energy on those aspects of Islam and Christianity which promote peace and goodwill to all people. I have come to believe that we do have two choices, my friends. Either we can live our lives based in fear, or we can live them based in love. We can interpret our scriptures and our religions for ourselves or for others, either through the lens of love or the lens of fear. Everything in life stems from either fear or love. Even if we have been given a narrative of hatred and fear, we have a responsibility to develop a narrative of love. That is the only way you and I can have a secure base to go through life as loving peacemakers. Every time you ever feel fear rising up in your heart, stop. Say to yourself, I have a choice to give my energy and my life over to fear, or I have a choice to choose love. In that moment, choose love. You can change your brain to go from the Velcro of negativity to the Teflon of hope, positivity, and peace. But nobody else can do that for you. No one else can do it for me. I have to make that choice myself. But the good news is, we don't have to do it alone. That's why we are in community. Isn't the Arabic word ummah important to the people in this room? Community? That's because you cannot be a loving person alone. You cannot be a full human being alone. We need one another. So embrace wherever in your life you are related to somebody who's Christian or Hindu or Jewish or not Muslim. Embrace wherever in your life you are called to be in relationship with someone different. And then ask that person to help you choose love over fear every time you get scared. If you do that, if I do that, we can change this world. Now, my wife and I are moving to Alabama in middle to late May because our grandchildren live there. I've got a journal that I've been developing that has my bucket list on it of all the things I'm going to do once I get to Alabama. At the top of the bucket list is I'm going to find as many Muslims as I can in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm going to say, let's get together, 10 of us, have supper, and we'll call it the first impact meeting of Birmingham, Alabama. We're going to double it to 20, and then we're going to triple it, and then we're going to have Salam al-Mariyati come in and preach to us. And before you know it, you are going to feel the vibrations coming from Birmingham, Alabama. Helping you choose love over fear. Thank you very much.
Before you came, I said, you're going to retire from your position, but you're not going to retire from your family. So this is your family, this is your home. We do expect you to come back. And in a sign of appreciation for who you are, what you have done for each and every one of us here in this room, and for the center, for the Muslim community, and for humanity at large, really, we would like to give you a token of appreciation. This award, by the way, is a first, and it is inspired by its recipient, Ed. And it is, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, the Islamic Center of Southern California is honored to present the Abrahamic Peacemaking Award to Reverend Ed Bacon for his outstanding work and leadership in reconciliation among Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
Take long. This is one of the highest honors I've ever received in my life. To be claimed by you as a brother is the deepest, deepest honor I could ever receive. I commit to you eternal friendship and collegiality. You called me, I'll be here. Thank you very much.
And we're going to have one more person come. I've asked the youth group to have their president come and give us some remarks. We demand leadership from young people. That's how we started in the youth group, and now this generation is going to be given the baton. So please, Mr. Omar Bender, come and give us your reflections.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, my name is Omar Badr. I'm the president of the MYG here at the Islamic Center of Southern California. And basically I wanted to give my reflection on how interfaith has been important to our youth group here at the ICSC. And Reverend Ed Bacon, I don't know you personally, but I know that you have been one of the primary drivers in the interfaith projects that we do here at the Islamic Center, along with Dr. Matt Hatoud, and I thank you for that, for putting all that effort before I was even here to place me in a position to where I could work on those interfaith relationships with our board and our MYG. I just want to really say that interfaith has changed a lot of our perspectives here.